trying this new project where I'm going to be doing book reviews and other perhaps social, I don't know what I'm doing. Let me stop this. Okay. Sup Sibs, this is ChrisTiana ObeySumner. This is the first episode of me trying a new project where I do book reviews and talk about social justice stuff. I might bring in some pop culture things too, to be honest. I just want to talk about books. I like books. This is a new blog / new project of mine called the Book Blerd because I'm black and a nerd and I like books. So I want to start with a book that I think is super relevant right now in terms of everything going on with the insurrection. In terms of strategy, there's a lot of books that I read that they are not exactly what's going on, but there's a lot of lessons and strategies to be learned in it. And that today is Being Human, the Judith Heumann story. Oh, there it is. Now, what do you think about this? Well, if you don't know me yet, a lot of the stuff I'll be talking about is about the intersection of being black and disabled, as well as, class and size and gender and sexual orientation. And so one of the things that I do, in addition to being a consultant, is that I consider myself an activist. I do activism work. I read a lot, and so a lot of the work that I do and all of the activism that I do is around like reading what has worked in the past, what doesn't work, strategies, theories, concepts, stories, things like that. The Being Human story about Judith Heumann is about it's a biography, it's a memoir, and it's about a person who is disabled. They're a user, and they became disabled from the polio epidemic, and so they became a quadriplegic. And if you've ever watched the movie Crip Camp, Judith Heumann is one of the characters in there, so this is her story specifically, but she talks about the experience of what it was in the mid-20th century growing up disabled before the Civil Rights Act and before the ADA, so we'll get to that. She talks about, what it was like to go to school, that her mom had to advocate for her to go to school. She had to go down to the fight for her to be able to go to school. And even when she was able to finally go to school, they sequestered all the disabled kids in the basement. They weren't teaching them the same material. They weren't teaching them at the same length. It's a whole mess. One of the things she's really known for, she wanted to be a teacher. And you had to go through these medical examinations, I guess, to be a teacher. Or she had to go through these medical examinations to be a teacher. And they were like, after asking her all these inappropriate questions about the way her body worked and like whether or not she would be able to like get out of a fire, they decided that she was not able to be a teacher because she was a fire hazard. And she talked about like she was so tired of being called a fire hazard. I really am going to try with these book reviews not to give you all the information because I want you to be able to go and read them. Fast forward to the first occupation, where the occupation happened, which is 1977, when they were getting the 504 pass, which this is what led up to the ADA in the 1990s. And it's so good. This book and Crip Camp does a good job about this. As a matter of fact, she's one of the main characters. There's a lot of cross-movement solidarity. And so this Black Panther named Bradley Lomax and his attendant, Chuck Johnson, was part of the occupation in the 70s. It was part of their fight for Black power, for Black disabled folks. And so they sat in with them, and they even had the Black Panthers there come and bring food every day so that they could be able to live and eat. Some of the amazing sort of stories, like in strategies, is like they talked about how they cut off their telephone line, and so deaf folks would sign to folks outside in the crowd so that they could pass messages back and forth, like incredible. The biggest thing about disability rights, if you don't know, is like there was a lot of folks left out of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. A lot. And one of those people, like one of those communities and groups of people, were disabled folks. There's also the thing about intersectionality too, is that when people think of the civil rights movement and the Civil Rights Act, they think, oh, well, this is where like certain communities, like, you know, supposedly getting all these rights and equality, but we have learned that just because you sign a law doesn't necessarily mean that you implement the law, and so that's a whole different book review. But I will say that the ADA in 1990 was supposed to bring parity for disabled folks to the Civil Rights Act, which, I mean, in a lot of ways it did, in the same ways that just because you sign something into law doesn't mean that it actually gets implemented into law. And so the way in which they got the ADA passed was really one of the most influential sort of stories for me in a lot of my activism and organizing work, in that it really, really took people being interdependent, collectivistic, having leadership of those most impacted, making sure everyone was heard, making sure everyone's needs were met, continuous consent. Like Judith Heumann talks about, like every night for this, it almost lasted a month. Every night these people were like, we didn't get what the demands that we needed. We ask you if we can just stay one more day, just one more day, just one more day, just one more day. So there's a lot of this, especially with folks who have been organizing during the insurrection right now, a lot of difficulty. It's hard. It takes an emotional toll. It takes, you know, it takes a psychological toll. It takes a physical toll. It's when there's something that you really truly believe in, and especially when there's something that is a part of your life, it's kind of like you don't have a choice, you know, to fight for these things. And so there's a lot of this that I think is really important. It didn't lead to some intersectional gains the way that some people really need. And so what I would like to do is talk about in the next video, Skin, Tooth, and Bone, which is the disability justice primer that was created in the early 2000s by a group of amazing Black and brown, queer, trans, non-binary, disabled folks in the Bay Area. And it goes through a different sort of 10 principles of like a theoretical framework, saying that disability rights, yes, has done a lot for bringing awareness, bringing parity. But here's the thing. There are some limitations with who is able to access the sort of legal policy services that are needed to be able to truly enact the sort of change that is needed. And so a lot of that is due to other systemic issues. Because I wanted to keep this short because it's the first one and I'm still just trying to figure out how I'm going to do this. But maybe the next one I'll talk about the compare and contrast between disability rights and disability justice. It's a whole conversation, as I just wanted to do like a sort of, this be sort of like a soft launch and just kind of see like how y'all like it. What do you want to see with this, with the Book Blerd? Do you want to see more of the review tip? Do you want to see more history leading into it? Do you want to see me do like compare and contrast two books at the same time? Do you want me to share personal stories? Do you want me to share more strategies around things? I didn't want to give too much of the book away because I don't know if people are like, spoiler alert, even though it's like history. Let me know. So I'm gonna put this on YouTube, so I guess what the YouTubers say is, you know, like and subscribe if you are interested in following me on this journey of making a book review channel. Please comment and let me know how you like to see this go, and I will pull comments and respond to them at the end of videos going forward. If you have any questions, comments, reflections on what I say, if I miss anything, if I misquote anything, definitely let me know. I will make corrections in the next video. And other than that, I guess this is it for the first one. They will, I'm sure, will get better with time. But until then, bye, Sibs.